And we are live. Hello, hello, my friends. As usual, I am Matthew, and I am joined here today by a very special guest, my very dear friend. Please welcome Emily back to the channel.
Hi, thank you for inviting me back.
Oh, you're so welcome. This is our second live stream in 48 hours.
Yes.
We are insane.
Yes.
But it's great to have you back, and the last time we did a stream like this where we talked about books, it was just so much fun.
It really was,
So,
yeah.
so, so I'm looking forward to doing it again. For those who maybe didn't watch our last stream or uh, just maybe are being introduced to both of us in the odd chance that that's happened, do you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about uh, your love of books, writing, anything else?
Sure. So Matthew and I actually met through YouTube.
Indeed.
My channel is not really related to books. I do a Japanese music review channel under the name Hikipedia.
Hmm.
And as we talked and got to know each other more, we started figuring out we were both big readers and then we're both writers. So um, over the years, we have shared our writing with each other and also shared our book recommendations.
Hmm.
So we now have passed our favorite books back and forth, and yeah, Matthew and I are both working on our second novels, so
Hmm.
that's been really great, really fun to work with you on that too.
Absolutely. It's just kind of nice to know that someone is there if I need to like bounce something off quickly or
Yeah,
just like say something because writing is such a solitary endeavor.
yeah.
It's so like personal and introspective,
Hmm.
and that it's just nice to kind of like balance that out with someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and especially another writer, because you can try it with people who are readers, but they don't really write, and then you ask them what they think about the issues you're having or something, they're like, I have no idea. But another writer, like
Yeah.
if I
Hmm.
come to you about something, you'd be like, oh, I know exactly what you mean.
Exact. Yeah. Hmm. I do want to say a quick hi to a couple of our friends here in the chat. Unholy Triforce
Oh,
is here. Hello, hello.
hey, thank you for coming.
And Jamal Breezy. Hello, friends. Hello, hello.
Oh, Jamal is here too from our live stream from 2 nights ago on my channel.
Yeah. Thank you for coming, for
Yeah,
jumping
yeah.
over and coming to see us.
Hmm.
So, if you haven't been able to tell by the title of the video, we're going to be talking about our top 10 favorite books of the year tonight. And I've got, I read like over 100 books. I was just telling Emily before we went live. I've
Hmm.
read over 100 books, but it was actually surprisingly easy to narrow these down. I expected to have a bit more difficulty than I did.
Yeah.
And I know for you it was kind of the opposite because you're like, I don't know if I'll be able to get to 10, but.
Yeah, I was telling you earlier in the year, I think in the spring or summer, that I was having kind of a downer year in reading so far.
Hmm.
And it was actually really getting me down because I hadn't really read anything great at that point.
Yeah.
But I kind of did it to myself also, where I started off the year forcing myself to read these books that I'd had on my shelf for several years
Yeah.
and I hadn't gotten to yet. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna attempt to read them. I did read a few. One of them I DNF'd, and yeah, so I ended up not really liking any of them except one,
Hmm.
which is actually going to be on my list. But um, yes, I read 50 books this year,
Yeah.
which I'm happy with. I think I set my goal to 30 or 40.
Hmm.
Um, I think last year I only read about 30,
Hmm.
but I was really distracted by podcasts last year in 2020, so I wasn't listening to as many audiobooks.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I'm curious how you choose to get through your books. Like, it seems like you read mostly physical books, but you ended up reading 100. this year.
102.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Mostly physical books. Occasionally, I would reread something on audio, like I would listen to it if I was rereading it.
Okay, yeah.
Like I re-listened to Surrender Your Sons. I re-listened to another book that is going to be on the list. So I'll get to that when I get to it. But yeah, another fun thing. I think we both said we had the same favorite book this year.
Yeah.
And it's one that I recommended you, and I'm so excited about that. But you'll find out what that is by the
Yeah,
end of the show tonight.
I'm so excited to have a discussion about it with you because I've been
Oh
dying, like,
God,
confessing for hours.
I have been wanting to discuss it with you like in depth since June, and I'm like, I just like, oh yes. So that was Emily's introduction and just a little bit of us bantering. But what do you say what do you say we get started with the actual list? And as
For
the
sure.
guest, I'll let you go first.
Oh, okay. So this one is the one I was just mentioning, which is one that I'd had on my shelf for a few years, and I already donated it, so I don't have the hard copy anymore. But it is Bed
Ooh,
by David Whitehouse, and I actually found this at the dollar store.
wow.
Yeah. So it was kind of like a unexpected gem.
Yeah,
Um, but I ended up rating it 4 stars. I don't know how you rate books, but I have quite a number of 4 stars on my top 10 list here.
yeah.
I kind of tend to reserve 5 stars for like my most favorite new favorite books ever.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 stars is still a really good rating from me.
Yeah.
Um,
I think I'm a little bit more liberal with my 5 stars.
yeah.
But that's just because I read so much and I get so invested in things and then da 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 da.
Hmm.
I mean, 4 star for me is if it like if it's good, but I just don't ever like see I just don't know if or when I'll ever reread it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
So,
then 3 stars is for me something that I liked okay, but also had a couple of issues with.
hmm,
Ones I typically reserve for DNF or books that are horribly offensive.
yes.
And then two is kind of I can't really recommend it, but I could see why someone else would like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just not for me. So that's kind of my system.
Yeah. I'm pretty similar.
Yeah. Unholy Triforce, the book that, as you've said, has consumed your life for the past 3 or 4 months. Okay, make that 6 months. LOL.
Hmm.
Yes. I will be reading that book for the 8th time in January. My
Awesome.
full January TBR, which is very ambitious. God help me.
Oh, yeah. That's one of your new videos, right?
So
Oh, you
that was a
froze.
lot of fun to film.
Oh, okay.
I
You
was
froze there for a minute.
Oh, did I? Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah. Are we good now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So yeah, that's one of my new videos. You can watch that if you haven't after this stream. And yeah, I was supposed to be on Volcarest yesterday, but literally 95% of my book haul arrived. And then
Oh.
I'm just like, I should probably do a TBR video too. So yeah. Been drinking lots of water. I've got 2 bottles next to me here.
Oh, that's good.
So yeah, all good. But yeah, anyway, that was your number 10.
Yeah,
You
should
you
I just tell you a bit about what it's about?
Sure.
So Bed by David Whitehouse. It is about it kind of spans this young man's life, starting when he's a little kid up
Mm-hmm.
until he's about like in his 40s,
I see.
and he's the younger brother of a family in London, England, and his older brother is kind of like the overachiever, like golden boy type
Mm-hmm.
of thing.
Yeah.
But he kind of hits this breaking point, his older brother, where he breaks off his engagement, he quits his job, and then he decides to just become literally he decides to become bedbound, where his mother is so subservient that he just makes his mother feed him until he's like 500 pounds.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but
Wow.
I guess it's interesting that it's told from the point of view of the little brother's story and his growing up experience watching all of this happen and then what like he chooses to do with his life.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting perspective. You would not necessarily expect that outsider looking in kind of perspective in a story like that.
Mhm. It was just kind of an unusual story, so yeah, I enjoyed the writing a lot.
Yeah. So I'm gonna get through my three honorable mentions first and talk about my number 10.
Okay.
So my first honorable mention of the year, In the Wildlife by Jeff Zentner.
Mhm.
This is about two best friends named Cash and Delaney who get scholarships to attend an exclusive private school. They live in this really small town in Tennessee, so it's kind of like a huge culture shock for them.
Mhm.
And they, try to stay together and uh, continue being friends, but each of them is pulled into different spheres, and there's like uh, a lot of conflict that arises between the two of them. So this is a story about friendship, growing up, letting go, moving on. There's a lot of poetry and really beautiful writing in this book as well.
Mhm.
Jeff Zentner has quickly become one of the more like he's not like my favoriteest of favorite authors. He's not like a Eric Walters or an Adam Silvera, but I've loved every single one of his books, and part of that is because his writing is just beautiful, and
Hmm.
each of his stories, he's written 4 books now. Uh, this is his fourth. Uh, they are so like heavy hitting and emotional, and you know me, I live for like my heavy hitting
Mhm.
emotional stuff, whether it's music, books. If it's somewhat heavy hitting and emotional, I will read that no matter what it is.
Yeah.
So
So is
that
it about a boy and a girl or
yes.
okay.
hmm So that is the first honorable mention. The second is Casey McQuiston's One Last Stop. This is about a woman named August who moves to New York City for college, and she meets this really awesome girl on the subway named Jane. But no matter when August goes on the subway, she always sees Jane. And so
Mhm.
there's like this really fascinating uh, historical and like almost like a time travel, but not really. If you read the book, you'll understand.
Mhm.
But yeah, Casey McQuiston wrote one of my favorite books of I forget what year their debut came out. Sorry, uh, I can't remember if it was 2019 or 2020, but they had previously wrote Red, White, and Royal Blue, which is
Mhm.
one of my favorite romance books ever. It's so like sweet and romantic and also like sexy as hell. And I love it. And this is much the same. It's sweet and romantic and a little bit quirky and really sexy. And yeah, really, really great stuff. Casey McQuiston just has like a writing style where, it doesn't feel like it's free pages, right? It
Oh,
just
okay.
goes by super quickly, and it's like
Hmm.
you get so invested in it, and it's like, yes, like, yes.
Yeah, I'm really interested in reading those. I keep seeing their first novel everywhere, and I recognize that second one as well.
Yeah. And then the third one was actually the third honorable mention is a gift from my friend Lucy, all the way over in the UK. And I know she's probably going to watch this back later. So, hi, Lucy. Love you. Uh, this
Oh.
is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Clune. And I've previously read TJ Clune before, but this seems to be like his most well regarded work. So I wanted to read it for a really long time, but just never gotten around to buying it.
Hmm.
So this was sent to me as part of the mystery gift book haul that we do, and I was so excited. And this is just like, it's weird and warm and wholesome and wonderful and magical, and oh, my heart was just melting.
Yeah, I keep seeing that one everywhere as well. I'm dying to read it.
Oh, it's so good.
Hmm.
It's so good. A little bit quirky as well, but very, very enjoyable. And so those were my three honorable mentions, but the first one to actually make my list here at number 10, If This Gets Out by Sophie Gonzalez and Cale Dietrich. This is basically two 18-year-old boy band members falling in love during their European leg of the tour that they're on, and it is uh, really interesting to read about, the band dynamic and how like global fame impacts their relationship, the dark side of the music industry, but it's also, about, the friendship and the music and about being true to yourself, no matter uh, what no matter what happens in life. And I really just I breezed through this novel. I got an arc of it, I believe it was in June, and I just completely fell head over heels for our two main characters and uh, their love story. And I just I don't know, it was just really, really good. And so
Hmm.
when I was compiling this list, it was like one of the first things that came to mind. Not the absolute, absolute, absolute best thing I've read this year, but definitely worthy of a place on this list.
That's not one of them that started as a fan fiction, is it?
No,
Okay.
a lot, a lot of people actually thought it was, but no, this was an
Yeah.
independent effort by both of these
Oh, okay.
authors.
Just looking at it, I was
Yeah,
like, kind of reminds me of One Direction, but um,
yeah,
I'm interested in reading that one too. I want to read more of like behind the music type of stories.
yeah. It's really fascinating. The because when you think about fame, it's often as like consumers we see the glamorous side, the action packed movies, the number one singles, the albums, blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
But there's a whole other aspect to it, and what I loved about this book is that it not only humanized all of the band members, but it also took a really deep dive into some really fucked up tactics. I apologize for cursing, but uh, some really fucked up tactics and just
Hmm.
like the dark side of the music industry, and I loved that so much.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, Unholy Triforce here in the comments. It sounded like you said in the wildlife, which automatically made me think of Hickey, If you don't know who Hickey is, anyone watching this, that is the name that us fans have for Hikaru Utada, who is
Mhm.
a Japanese singer-songwriter. So if anyone didn't get that reference, that's what they're referring to.
And you can find out more on my channel.
Yes. Emily is the J-pop queen of YouTube. She is my main source for everything related to Hikaru Utada.
Thank you.
So, yeah. All right, moving on. Number
Mhm.
9.
Okay, so my number 9 I placed in here was Heartstopper Volume 2. Yeah. So this is another recommendation from Matthew, and yeah, I just fell in love with this webcomic as soon as I started reading it. I was just binging it, reading it as much as I could, and yeah.
Yeah,
I need to actually buy the comic itself. I've just been reading it online, but
yeah,
I believe this is the one that's going to become a Netflix series.
it is.
Yeah.
Which
So
I'm excited but nervous about that.
yeah.
I'm excited because the Heartstopper series is one of my favorite series ever. I
Yeah.
tore through that on Tapas so
Mhm.
quickly when I read it, and then I bought all of the available volumes in hardcover. But
Yeah. I at first I wanted to read it just out of like showing support because my comic is on Tapas as well, and
hmm
this is the first time a webcomic is being adapted by Netflix. So,
yeah,
but I was quickly pulled in by the charming characters and the fast-paced story and just the unconventional love story in it.
yeah,
It just has a lot of heart and like humanity in it, and the art is cute, which is always a bonus. So,
yeah,
yeah, really enjoying this series.
for sure. And I'm so glad to see that on here. I'm so glad to see that on here. Uh, so yeah, if you want to know what Heartstopper is, then you can find that on Tapas as well, and Emily's own comic if you so desire. I
Yes.
will be sure to link both of those in the description section down below.
Oh, thank you.
I've already linked all of our socials. I did not think to do the Tapas yet, but I will do that after.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah. Unholy Triforce, Emily knows all and sees all, which is why she's Wikipedia. LOL. I agree. Yeah.
Thank you, but I am always being taught things by my subscribers and viewers, so
hmm Are we ready for my number 9?
absolutely.
Number 9 on my list is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is uh, a kind of like a historical fiction novel with a dual timeline, and it follows these 4 or 5 different siblings who have a famous singer, a fictional famous singer, for a dad, and
Mhm.
they're all famous in their own rights, as the children of celebrities often are. And this all takes place in the course of one night in the present, and there's this huge house party at the eldest sister Nina's house. And throughout the course of that party, there are a lot of there's a lot of soul searching being done, a lot of secrets being revealed, and just a whole lot of mayhem and madness, as you would expect from an excess-soaked Hollywood party.
Mhm.
And I believe I said this to you uh, in one of our writing sprints, actually, that Taylor Jenkins Reid just has a way of writing fictional famous people
Mhm.
that makes them feel so completely three-dimensional and real. And I love her writing. I love the way she writes, and I oftentimes when I've read any of her last 3 books, I've forgotten that these are fictional characters.
Oh,
That's
really?
that's how in depth and good her writing is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I really love the whole. I'm trying to. Is this in frame? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, this whole book is also like really atmospheric. Like I could just picture, the mansion in the cliffs of Malibu, the ocean crashing beneath on the shore, and just the smell of the salt and all of that. So it's very, very atmospheric as well, which is another reason I love it so much.
I'm trying to figure out why it looks so familiar to me. It might already be on my library holds, but yeah, definitely another one I need to read. I think you're going to be saying that to every one of your books.
Aside from the one that I know
Number
for a
one.
fact you've already read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So my number 8
Yes.
is Tales from the Hinterland. This is a new release this year by Melissa Albert.
That's one of the what's Hazelwood books, right?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a companion book to the Hazelwood series. So she's quickly become one of my favorite authors. And she seems really nice too. Like she replies to my comments on Instagram and everything. But
Love that.
so this is a companion book basically. I think I did talk about this in our last live on your channel, but I'll just go over it again briefly. Where
Yeah, because the Hazelwood was in your top 10 favorites of all time.
yeah, so the Hazelwood, the concept of it is the main character is the granddaughter of an author who wrote this collection that's come out now, Tales from the Hinterland, and it's this creepy, unconventional collection of fairy tales that don't really have a moral to them. They're just weird.
Okay.
So Melissa Albert put out this collection as some of the fairy tales that are featured in her like main book series.
Okay. Love an offer that can tie into a whole universe. Love that.
Yeah, so it was really creative, and yeah, I just really enjoy Melissa Albert's writing style. So yeah, it had to be in my top 10 this year.
For sure, absolutely. And I still need to read the Hazelwood. Next time I
Yeah,
see it on a shelf somewhere, I'm picking it up. I don't even care.
I think you'll like it.
Yeah. So, my number 8 surprised me. I did not expect to love this as much as I did.
Hmm.
And I think it would surprise you given that I've basically said I did not have a really good experience with this author in the past, but it is A Court of
Oh,
Thorns and Roses by Sarah J.
hmm,
Maas.
I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, I previously had attempted to read the Throne of Glass series, and as you know, I did not have a really good time with it.
Hmm.
I lost interest pretty quickly.
It's not good.
No. Yeah. Uh, but the maturation of her writing style from that to this is
Hmm.
night and day. This is head and shoulders above the Throne of Glass in terms of writing style.
Hmm.
100%. So she's definitely improved. And the thing that bothered me about Throne of Glass is that it had all of the elements that I would look for in an
Hmm.
epic fantasy series. It had the uh, interesting, like, love story. It had the badass female protagonist. It had, the richly detailed world that I was, like, kind of here for. And it just never really ended up delivering for me. But
Hmm.
this sucked me in from the very first chapter, and I was hooked. It is dark, it is bold, it is daring, it is sweet, it is unbelievably sexy. Holy, like I was surprised that this ended up being published as like young adult at the time.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't leave anything to the imagination.
Is that the first one in her second series?
It is the first book in the series, yes.
Okay, yeah.
I have also read A Court of what was that? A Court of Mist and Fury, I think is the second one.
Her titles are so stupid.
And then I just bought it's in my book haul, which was the other video I posted yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I just bought A Court of Wings and Ruin, which is the third book.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to continuing with this story because I went in being like, okay, I'm gonna try and be like as objective and non-biased as I can, but I was not expecting to uh, love, much less really like this series,
Mm-hmm.
and it blew me away. So
Yeah. You know what's really funny is yesterday my friend Ellen, whom you're acquainted with now,
yeah,
messaged me about that author, asking if I'd ever read any of her books. And I read the first one as well, and it gave me a headache. But then I also heard that her second series is much better. So I read like the first chapter of that book. And I felt the same way. Like I was really drawn into it and I thought it was really good. I just haven't gotten around to reading the whole thing yet.
yeah, trust me, as someone who was skeptical about Sarah J. Maas going into this,
Hmm.
it's worth it.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, I'll definitely be checking it out.
We have a couple of comments here.
Hmm.
Dareka54 says, I'm intrigued by weird stories. Yes.
Definitely.
Weird is always interesting to read. You're never bored.
Yeah.
Is that a stylized wolf on the cover of A Court of Thorns and Roses? Good eye, my friend. I believe it is. You can
Yeah.
see the tail and up to the mouth here. Yep. And I can confirm that the first chapter had something to do with a wolf. So, not entirely off base with this design on the cover. And then, again, Dereka54 is saying interesting
Hmm.
with an emoji here. Yep. So, that is my very surprising number 8. That is like the one that I was not expecting to put on here. But
Hmm.
once I read it, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's going on here.
Okay, so my next one is another one I do not own the paperback for, but most of these I get on Audible, so I still own a
Yeah.
copy, but it's just not as
Mm-hmm.
interesting to show on video.
Yeah.
So this one is The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers, another one of my
Okay.
favorite authors.
I've heard of her before.
Yeah, so I talked about her, I think, in our previous live stream as well,
I think so, yes.
because I think her first book I would have had in like my top 10 books of all time.
Mm-hmm. Which is saying something for a debut to really capture you that much, for sure.
Yeah. So this is number 4 in that series.
Mm-hmm.
But they're kind of like standalones. You could definitely read them out of order. They don't follow the same characters. They're all like on different planets or different areas of space and different main characters.
I see.
So this one is about an alien who they work at kind of a freeway station on their planet, or like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like a truck stop but for spaceships.
I'm just thinking of Cowboy Bebop here, to be honest.
Yeah, okay, it's kind of like similar but totally different tone.
Got it.
So the way Becky Chambers writes sci-fi is very it's more like light sci-fi.
Okay, yeah.
Like leaning more towards the fantasy end rather than the hard science.
Mm-hmm.
So what's really interesting about Becky Chambers, books, or what I love about them, is that they're like cozy sci-fi, so they're very just like comforting to read, and her imagination, like what she comes up with all the different alien species, is so um just imaginative and interesting. That's probably my favorite part. And then like the characters have a lot of depth and feeling to them.
Mhm.
And yeah, I kind of they're like comfort reads to me, because I do read a lot of like darker like mind
Yeah,
melting stuff, and
same. Yeah, I think we have that in common.
yeah, so whenever I want to just feel like I'm being like hugged by a book, but it's still like interesting enough to keep me interested, it's definitely like a Becky Chambers sci-fi book. So
Love that. I
yeah.
mean, sci-fi is not typically a genre I reach for that often.
Hmm.
In part, like I've enjoyed almost every book with that is sci-fi or that has sci-fi elements that I've read.
Hmm.
Sorry,
Well,
but they're like with a lot of sci-fi I found it's uh like that harder science stuff with like the really dense
hmm.
prose and a
Yeah.
lot of like info dumping, and I'm just like, ah, stop before my brain melts. Too much.
Yeah. I do really like science fiction, but yeah, I totally know what you mean. Like those types of overly dense science fiction books, I do have a harder time getting into, but I like a lot of the classics as well.
Yeah, that's another thing I learned this year. Me and classic literature, for the most part, do not mix.
Unholy Triforce says, so Becky Chambers writes similarly to Douglas Adams. Your description reminds me heavily of A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Um, I would probably put it in the same vein, but Becky Chambers doesn't really write comedy the way that Douglas Adams does. So I've read his book as well, and I really like it, and I love the movie. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think probably if you like one, you'll like the other. But Becky Chambers not really in the like goofy, like comedic sense as Hitchhiker's Guide.
yeah. And referring to A Court of Thorns and Roses, I assume they also said, interesting. I love books that have a wolf element to them.
Hmm.
Not for long, but yes, in the first chapter, it is
Uh,
there.
okay, yeah.
Yeah. So,
So your next pick.
my number 7 is a book that I just read this month,
Hmm.
and it is just one of those books that I read in one sitting that I just could not pull my eyes away from, and I thought the concept of it was like really like unique and original, and that is the thriller Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. And I had been seeing this pretty much everywhere on Bookstagram. A lot of authors that I really like have read this book and enjoyed it, and so that kind of made me interested in it. And I generally typically like thrillers, so I picked this up very recently, and it is about two ex-con fathers who attempt to get uh, justice or vengeance or both, depending on how you look at it, for the deaths of their sons. And
Hmm.
their sons were gay and married to each other.
Okay.
And so they are uh, resolute in their quest for this justice to find out what happened to their sons and why, and
Hmm.
to bring the people responsible to justice. And it is just really compulsively readable uh, from the first page to the last. It's near breakneck action, and I just yeah, I love this. So much so that I actually just recently bought another of S.A. Cosby's books.
Okay,
So
yeah. Sounds very intense.
100%. It's like, yeah, it like I said with A Court of Thorns and Roses, it's not really a book that leaves much to the imagination. It is very like intense, pulse pounding, like uh, definitely violent as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a really fantastic read. And if you are at all into thrillers, you will like this, and you will probably like my next pick too. But we'll save that for a bit. Yeah, that's the Douglas Adams one. Dereka 54, I gotta head out, but I'll be tuning in to your next collab. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, see ya.
See you. All right, so you're number 6.
Okay. My number 6 is going to be really hard to see. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Matthew's very excited.
V.E. Schwab is my third favorite author ever.
Oh, okay.
Fantastic. I loved that book when I read it last year.
Yeah, so
in 2020.
I finally got around to reading it this year while I listened to it. And it's a really long book. I don't know.
It's really long. It's not as long in the physical, but when you're listening to the audiobook,
it feels long.
It does. Yeah. I have the audiobook too, so.
But yeah, so it was really one of those books that just intrigued me from the start because the main character seems to get herself into this impossible scenario where I immediately was.
Yeah, it's literally a deal with the devil. Let's call it what it is.
Where I was like, how is she gonna survive this or like work her way around this? And yeah, really appreciated the like bisexual representation in it as well.
Yes. On both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But both
sexes.
Both of our like main love interest people are bisexual, which is awesome.
Yeah. So very interesting concept. The only thing that maybe like kept it from being 5 stars for me was that it dragged on a little bit too long. Could have been cut down a little bit, but amazing writing by V.E. Schwab as always. So
yeah, her writing is just gorgeous.
Yeah,
it's gorgeous. Okay, so my number 6, right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, my number 6 is another LGBTQ plus thriller. This is Bathhouse by P.J. Vernon. This is a debut this year, and from the very first moment that I saw this cover on Instagram, I'm like, yes, like I need this. It's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And this is a story about a former drug addict who has sobered up, cleaned up his life, and is now in a domestic partnership with a wealthy older surgeon named Nathan, and they consider themselves married. They call each other husband and whatnot. But one night, while Nathan is away at a conference, Oliver, who was our main character, decides to cheat on his husband and go to a gay bathhouse. And while he is there, he is assaulted physically, not like he's like choked and whatnot by the person that he ends up picking up to hook up with. And that begins a web of lies and just like general paranoia and everything that comes along with it, because he's like deeply traumatized naturally, but he also doesn't want to lose his husband. So he's hiding the truth from his husband, and it is a compulsively readable, sweat-soaked,
Gross.
brilliant novel. My God. I was like, towards the end, I'm just like obviously I didn't skip that many pages, but I was like turning the pages as fast as I could,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what would happen, and then it ended up coming out what like the whole like big plot twist, and I was like
Mhm.
like I did not see that coming at
Mhm.
all.
That's another one I've been seeing everywhere since it came out.
Oh God, it's so good. I think the
Mhm.
author's Canadian too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think so. Let me see if it mentions it on the flap, actually. He lives in Calgary. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Oh, Matthew.
Yeah.
Oh,
Are we good?
yeah, you froze for
Like,
1 second, but you're good.
Unholy Triforce says Razorblade Tears definitely makes me think of some of Mary Higgins Clark's novels, which can be very intense also. Where Are the Children comes to mind for me, especially in terms of getting justice for their murdered sons. Yes. I know Mary Higgins Clark. I've never read any of her books, but I do know she has that reputation for like intense, heavy hitting thrillers. So
Mhm.
I will definitely be seeking some of those out at some point.
Yes. Okay, so my next one is a reread.
Love that.
So I think this came out in 2020. So it's not very old, but the sequel came out this year. So I wanted to reread it before I got the sequel. So this is Axiom's End by Lindsay Ellis.
Ooh, I actually know this book.
Oh, do you? Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's another sci-fi. But yeah, so I wanted to reread it because there is quite a lot going on in here, and I'm glad I did because it ended up, like when I find when a introduction to a book is very like action packed, it can be confusing. But then when you go back and reread it, once you know what happens at the end, it's kind of like putting all the puzzle pieces together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I definitely found that helped with this book because there's a lot of hard to remember words in this for like the species of the aliens in this and like their different languages and all their
Yeah.
the names for all the aliens and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
this series is about first contact. So it takes place in 2007. And
That is really weird to think about now.
yeah. And the author explained like why she chose that time period. So it's because of like the presidency at the time. I can't really remember her reasoning, but she chose it for specific reasons, like post 9/11, but not like exactly modern times. So anyway, um, the book is about this young woman who is like a college dropout that she basically gets recruited by this one alien named Ampersand
Mm-hmm.
to be his interpreter to basically humans.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the thing I love the most about sci-fi is like different authors' interpretations of alien species and what they come up with in their imaginations. So the aliens in this are kind of like metallic, like raptors, and
Fascinating.
they're highly intelligent biomechanical species that are very like militaristic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they happen to be also be very scared of humans. And somehow the main character's estranged father is wrapped up in this first contact event. So yeah, really enjoyed this reread and very glad I read it. That being said, the sequel did not end up on my top 10 this year, but
Ooh.
it is a series, so I will be continuing on with it.
Awesome. Okay. So my number 5 is actually a book that I read back in 2020, but I reread it this year.
Mm-hmm.
because it finally got released. And that is Yesterday is History by Kosoko Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
This is a young adult debut, and it is an LGBTQ plus romance with historical elements and like time travel, because we are following this recovered cancer patient named Andre who gets an organ donation. And as a result of that organ donation, he has now gained the ability to time travel back into the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so he ends up uh, in his neighborhood in Boston in the 1960s, and he meets this boy named Michael, who is kind of a rebel. Uh, as you know, being openly gay in the 60s to the 80s was not uh, a very uh,
Accepted.
accepting time.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of like the rebel in that way, and uh, as Andre continues to travel back in time, they end up forming a friendship that develops into something deeper. Meanwhile, in the present, he is attached to a guy named Blake, who is the brother of his donor, who has been assigned to teach him how to properly use his new time travel abilities. So it's kind of like a pull from the past, a pull from the present. Which version of Andre would he rather be?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I kid you not, the last 5 to 10% of this book made me sob my eyes out. It
Yeah.
did when I first read it back in 2020, and upon rereading it this year, tears again. It is such a unique concept. The writing is really smooth and easy and just really approachable.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love this book. It's so like emotional and like
Sounds interesting.
yeah. So we are now officially halfway through our list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we have a comment here from Unholy Triforce. It's so weird thinking of the early 2000s as not really being modern times. It doesn't feel like it was really that long ago, but when you count up the years, it just blows your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like we're going into 2022
Yes.
in like 48 hours, not even.
Yeah.
What in the world is
I
going
know.
on? Yeah, it's this year has gone by simultaneously really slow and really fast.
Mm-hmm. It went by fast for me.
Hmm.
Like the winter always drags on a bit after New Year's, but then once we hit spring, it goes by like lightning.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
found that too. All right,
Right.
so that was a nice little break. Do you want to seg you into your number 4?
Yes. So bear with me, guys, when I tell you
Okay.
what this is. Okay, you can see my shirt right now.
My Chemical Romance, which Emily introduced me to. You got me into their music.
Yeah. Well, to be
I
fair, you knew who they were,
I
but
knew who they were, but I didn't really listen to them until you told me I should and then sent me your playlist. So,
yeah. So this year I got back into My Chemical Romance. I was always a fan of them, but I think like because of COVID, I've just been like much more self-indulgent than I used to be, where if I find I'm interested in something, I just let myself go like head on to it. I don't care about being cringe. I don't care if I'm
right.
too old for it now. Like
Mhm. Yeah.
I have to grasp onto like those little shiny points
Moments of
of
joy.
happiness. Exactly. Like so I've been looking at a lot of fan artists. MCR has like the best fan art. Um Yeah, and the fan artists tend to be really nice in the community as well. So
That's a
I
nice surprise. Some like writers and artists in certain fandoms are not really nice at all,
yeah, they can
in
be really
my
bitchy.
experience.
No,
So,
I know what you mean. So I was following this artist for a little while, and I had heard about this series called Death Wish, this fan made series.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I wouldn't have put this on my list if it wasn't an original story. So Death Wish is featuring like the 4 core members of MCR, but it's not about the band. It's like a fictionalized portrayal of them. Like they took the characters and put them into their own original story. They're not in a band or anything. So the story is about Gerard's brother Mikey, who is
Right.
the bassist in MCR. He dies at the beginning of the series.
Whoa, okay.
And there's these kind of like angels of death that you can see here on the cover
Mm-hmm.
that are lurking around. And Frank shows up as this kind of like vagrant, and he has a way to get into this like realm of death. Um,
Okay.
so
Why is
Gerard,
this reminding me of Death Note, the
yeah,
manga?
it's similar to Death Note, and the Angels of Death Note are very like snarky and have this like goofy banter between all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I ordered all of these at once, and I just was so impressed by the art. First of all, it's
Yeah,
gorgeous,
it looks gorgeous just from the cover.
and it starts out really good, and it like super improves as it goes on. So
Whoa.
this is volume 3, and this
Love
one
that.
I was like, oh my god, the art is amazing.
Wow.
And by reading this, I found out that the artist and writer, I think they're both like both. So it's like a pair of friends who met online,
Mm-hmm.
and they both like draw and they both write for the series, which is kind of unusual. But
Yeah, because normally when it's like multiple creators on a project, it's one does one does the other.
right. And I also found out by reading this that they were like 17 when they started it. So they were
Whoa.
like 18 putting out work like this, so the reason I wanted to include this is because even if you're not a My Chemical Romance fan and maybe you just like graphic novels, this is such a good story, and it's a standalone like story and world that they've made up that they just happen to use like the band members' likeness for. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was one of those moments where like myself as an artist too was like, when I was this age, I could draw like an anime face, and that was it. And these like people at the same age are putting out like these whole ass like graphic novels that they wrote, and they look amazing and they read amazing. It's just, yeah, I am super in love with these,
You'll
and
have to send me a link to those.
yeah,
Yes.
they're so good. And they recently posted on Instagram that they are working on the newest issue. So yeah, it's just so good. There's
Ooh,
Frankie.
nice.
Yeah. No, I right after this, I'm gonna like go reread these again because I love them so much.
Love that. Unholy Triforce says, yeah, the art style really reminds me of Death Note as well. I read the manga like 10 years ago and was simultaneously very intrigued and also highly disturbed by it. I think that's everyone's reaction to Death Note,
Yeah.
to be honest. Uh, this looks macabre in a fun way,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't read them yet, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know they existed, but I will read those at some point for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah. So my number 4,
Mm-hmm.
one of my I was really lucky with getting arcs from publishers this year
Mm-hmm.
through NetGalley, and this is one of the arcs that I received that had its final release in November. and that is Roxy by the father-son duo Neil and Jared Schusterman. I
Hmm.
I previously read 3 Neil Schusterman books, and I also read their previous collaboration with each other called Dry, and I
Mhm.
loved all of them. So this was kind of like an auto buy kind of a moment for me.
Mhm.
And not that I didn't enjoy their first collaboration, like I said, but this literally blew me away. It is about uh, 2 siblings named Isaac and Ivy Raimi, and they're both like polar opposites. Isaac is like the popular, attractive, jock kind of character, and Ivy's like the more thoughtful, brooding, introspective kind of artist. And they each end up getting Isaac ends up getting injured in a soccer match, and Ivy, uh, her parents have finally had enough of the way she lives her life and uh, the deadbeat boyfriend that she has and whatnot. And
Mhm.
so they take her to a therapist, and that therapist prescribes a medication, and that is how the 2 Raimi siblings find themselves entranced in the opioid
Mm.
epidemic.
Okay.
And just the way that this book is written not only does like it humanizes the opioid
Mhm.
epidemic, not only through its portrayal of Isaac and Ivy, but also in the really ingenious way that the authors wrote like the actual drugs themselves
Mhm.
as characters. So, for example, Adderall, which Ivy takes, is a guy named Addison,
Okay.
and OxyContin, which Isaac takes for his injury, is called Roxy, hence the title of the book.
Mhm.
And there's like this big party in the sky, like this really exclusive party. It's like think like heaven or hell kind of esque.
Mhm.
So and there's like this big party, and there's like all these interpersonal relationships with like the different drug characters as well, and it's all really fascinating and really compelling. And by the end of this book, it is absolutely devastating. So yeah, this is one of the most original, creative, and important books I read this year.
Mm. I haven't heard of that one.
Oh, so good. I think you'd really like it, actually.
Yeah.
I do.
So, am I number 3 now?
Yeah, top 3. This is where we get to the really good stuff.
Okay. So, um, my number 3 that I've chosen is Iron Widow.
Ooh, I remember you were reading this.
Yeah, I think I messaged you about it.
Right, right.
By Zidan J. Zhao. Sorry for my pronunciation there.
Yeah, I can never say that correctly. Whenever I just call it the Iron Widow book. Really.
Yeah. So this is another one where I had to go back and listen to the beginning again because it like just throws you right into the story, and there's so much
Mhm.
to remember, like all the character names and different. There's like it's like a Gundam story basically. So there's like these biomech things, kind of like Escaflowne or Evangelion as well,
Mhm.
where the pilots like have to connect physically to the
To the
machines.
mech. Yeah.
hmm Um, and I had some issues with the book. Like some of the writing was extremely, extremely clunky and just very, I think I said overwrought in my review.
Mhm.
where, like, I remember at one point in particular at the beginning of the book, one of the characters is described as he's using like a something. He's holding some kind of utensil in his hand, and he's like, there's a wreath of humidity like netting his hand. And it's just like, how do you see humidity? Like,
Yeah.
it was kind of odd. And there's a few other points like that in the book, but there's also some very like Hunger Games esque stuff in it, especially
Oh.
the third book elements. So other than the mech aspect, this book centers around this female main character who has been hobbled by the ancient Chinese practice of foot binding.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've heard this story is a retelling of the Empress of China. There's like one Empress that
Okay.
in particular this is about. And again, sorry for my ignorance there, but I don't really know if you would classify this as like science fiction or fantasy. I guess it's more along the fantasy lines.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, so these mechs are run by a like yin and yang circuit that has to be
Mm-hmm.
completed by one male and one female pilot.
Okay.
So basically, all the females are tested for their power levels.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have a good power level, then they get paired up with like male pilots. And then a lot of times they end up dying because the male pilot's power like overwhelms them, and then they end up dying after battle.
Oh, joy. Great.
Yeah. So there's a lot of problems with it. Like the main character is like, I'm not like other girls, and there's like a guy at one point in the story is like, you're not like the other girls, you know. So it's kind of annoying in that way. But just
Yeah.
there was a really
Like if
interesting.
you're not like other girls, you don't need to say that. It will. We can see that as a reader. You don't need to say.
Yeah,
You
but
don't need to say.
it's also just like a really sexist concept to begin with. Like if you think you're not like other girls, it means you're like looking down on all of their females as well,
Right. Right. Yeah.
and assuming things about them. So
Mm-hmm.
what I really liked about this was the action scenes are really well done,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like a very refreshing concept. With the like, I really like mech anime, so like reading about it in a book, I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also like there's sort of a love triangle in it, but it's not what you would expect. I don't know if I want to spoil it because it doesn't really happen until like the middle of the book, but it kind of flips the love triangle thing on its head. So I really enjoyed that as well,
Ooh.
and I'm looking forward.
Love when we can subvert tropes like that.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a sequel coming out, which I'm really looking forward to as well.
Oh, I didn't know if that was standalone, if it was getting a sequel. So
Yeah, it's a series.
yeah.
So
Awesome. I'll have
mhm.
to read that at some point for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
Yeah. So my number 3, speaking of subverting tropes, we have The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane. This is pitched as an adult LGBTQ plus rom-com,
Mhm.
and it's true. There are several moments that are both romantic and comedic that make you laugh out loud.
Mhm.
But the reason this is so high on this list is because of the depth that this story has, and the mental health representation, and just like I said, the really fun way that it subverts tropes.
Mhm.
So we are behind the scenes at a like Bachelor-esque franchise kind of show
Mhm.
called Ever After, and uh, the main character Charlie is like this socially awkward tech genius who really doesn't want to be there, and he's got OCD and anxiety and all things that I can relate to. So I really saw a lot of that in here, and it was very respectfully handled and such. But he really doesn't want to be there, and he's not looking for a wife or a life partner, and they've
Mhm.
got all these like 20 something women lined up to meet him, and he doesn't like to be touched or anything.
Okay.
And then he ends up going on practice dates with his male producer, Deb, which again, I also really appreciated the POC rep in this. I can't
Mhm.
really speak to it because I'm not a person of color, obviously.
Mhm.
But from just an like from a non POC perspective, I thought it was uh, as well done as uh, it was well done. Let's just say that.
Okay.
But they end up going on like practice dates together, and uh, the relationship starts as, oh my god, this is such a chore. Why the heck are we doing this? To, oh, this person isn't really as bad as I thought they were. Then, oh my god, I'm head over heels in love for my producer. What the actual? And it's so charming and sweet, but there's also like I said, there's a lot of mental health representation and a little bit of angst, and it just is such a perfect balance. And for this to be a debut novel, wow. Like, I
Mhm.
kid you not, I got an arc of this from, yeah, had to remember the publisher, Atria Books,
Mhm.
on NetGalley, and I read about half of it in one sitting, and I took a break only to pre-order the final copy of this book. And then I
Oh,
went
okay.
back to reading it again. It's that compelling and that good, and I'm just like, yes, yes, this is what I want. None of the cheesy romance bullshit.
Mhm.
This is what I want. So yeah, I was really very happy with this, as you can tell.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of a book I read this year as well, but it was like a lesbian romance on the flip side
Ooh,
between a famous actress and her assistant.
ooh,
That started out
fascinating.
with the like dating rumors thing, like denying dating rumors to actually like starting to date.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That
Yeah.
sounds fascinating. You'll have to tell me that book when we're off stream.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right, so number two.
This is going by so fast.
I know.
So this one I have pre-ordered the paperback copy. I know I usually like hardcovers, but I don't know why. Like I just like the look of this one in paperback more than hardcover.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the cover is like this mock Instagram post.
Okay.
So the title here is The Atmospherians, and it is
Okay.
by.
What the hell is this book?
Once I tell you what it is, you're gonna be like, okay, that's so your type of book.
Mm-hmm. All
So
right, lay it on me.
this is by a non-binary author named Alex McElroy,
Okay.
who goes by they them. So I will try my hardest to gender everyone properly here. But this story is about a young woman again who uh, she starts off as an Instagram influencer and she has her own
Mm-hmm.
skincare brands, but then one of her like crazed stalkers um, commits suicide on stream
Oh my
when,
god.
yeah, after she told him, like in a reply to one of his comments, like the world will be better off without people like you in it.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so she gets like mass cancellation with people outside her building, like protesting her existence. And like,
Oh my god.
so she basically gets swept away by her childhood best friend who approaches her and says, basically, let's start a cult for all these disenfranchised straight men who feel like the world in like it's a very timely book. I believe it just came out this year.
Mm-hmm.
About like cancel culture and like influencers and kind of the state of uh
Social media
like
fame and stuff.
yeah, I was gonna say like the alpha male status of like those men who think like straight men who are very feeling like they're being attacked right now by like minorities actually getting a voice
Right.
today. Um so
Okay, I'm obsessed with this concept, and you are right. That is right up your alley.
I know, I was like, so basically how I found this book is as we were talking a bit about in the beginning of the stream, we're both writers, so I started querying my first novel, which is about a cult as well this year, and I had to find some contemporary books to use as my comparable titles in my
Right.
query. So this
Mm-hmm.
one I found, and it is Alex's debut book, and yeah, so what was I going to say? The male character in it, he ends up having a pretty interesting story, and surprisingly, it kind of goes in depth into his backstory rather than the female main character. And
That
then
is interesting.
but then we kind of see the cults in the group and like what happens to the men through her point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it was very like fast paced, like amusing, almost like what's it called? Not parody. What's the word I'm trying to think of?
Ugh. It's on its my
You
tongue
know what?
too.
It's kind of like what Dave Sedaris writes.
God.
Anyway, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Like,
I do. Yeah, I
it's
know.
it's like commentary on today's
Yeah, it's
media.
like a social commentary.
Yeah, kind of like tongue in cheek, but also like a little dark, a little edgy, and
Yeah,
um, very unlikable, like love to hate characters. And
yeah,
yeah, I just found it like so intriguing and funny and interesting, and
yeah, for
definitely,
sure.
I think Alex is an author to follow. So,
For sure. I'm definitely interested in this.
mhm,
For sure. I love books that have to deal with like social issues too.
mhm,
I think those are, like you said, very timely and important. So
yeah,
yeah, love that entire concept generally. Holy moly.
mhm.
Wow. Love that. Unholy Triforce here says, so part of it is the super straight, in quotations, phenomena where certain kinds of straight men feel attacked by minorities and feel like they're being quote unquote tricked by trans and non binary individuals. I
Mhm.
see. Yeah, sounds just about right, my friend.
Yeah, I think the males in this story are like, um, from their point of view, they don't understand like that they came from a place of power. So then, when we're letting other people have a voice, they feel like they're being knocked down in a way. But it's yeah, they don't see it as equality, and instead of like trying to help them, the cult is just like exploiting them. Like like the friends set out to like deliberately exploit the men.
Oh, God.
So yeah, it's really funny.
Yeah. Alrighty. Are we ready for my number 2 of the year?
Yeah, I can't wait to see this.
It is Invisible Boys by Holden Shepard.
Hmm.
This is a debut novel from an Australian author,
Hmm.
and I've really gotten into Australian fiction
Yeah.
this year, and this book is the reason why. So we are following 3 characters. Charlie is kind of like this punk rock emo guy that like looks terrifying, but like really he's uh, terrified of coming out and all of that, and he just
Love
wants
that.
to get as far away from his small town as possible.
Hmm.
And then we have Hammer, who is like the alpha male jock esque kind of character. And then we have Zeke, who is kind of like the nerdy, shy, quiet type. And all three of their stories are interconnected, and like I loved this book for a lot of reasons. First of all, it deals with a lot of really heavy and relatable subject matter in a very sensitive and respectful way.
Mm.
Two, I loved that this was set in Australia. Like I said, I had
Mhm.
never read a book set in Australia before. I've always wanted to go to Australia and experience it myself, so this was kind of fun. Just like that cultural difference and like the language and the scenery and like the different landmarks. It was really, really fantastic like that.
Mhm.
And the ending of this book, I feel like I've said this a couple of times during this stream, but it's true. The ending of this book is devastating
Mm.
and so emotional. And there was just something about this book that struck a chord with me on a lot of different levels. And I loved it. And I've actually talked to the author on DMs through Instagram, and they he is the author is one of the most awesome authors I've had the pleasure of interacting with so far. So I just love when good books are written by good people, and this is one of them.
Mhm.
So
Sounds amazing.
absolutely fantastic for sure.
Before we go on, I just want to say I noticed that you have a lot of books on your list that are like orange covers and they match your room.
That's true. I didn't even notice that. I need to paint these walls. I swear, I do not like this orange color.
Oh, you don't?
Not really, no.
Oh, where did it come from?
N- We've lived in this house for 7 years now,
Mhm.
and this was the color of this room when we moved in here.
Oh,
And
okay.
we've always said we're gonna paint it, but we've
Yeah.
never had time to paint it. So
Uh, Here I was thinking it must be your favorite color because you had so many books matching it too.
no, no. All right, so number one, and we both have the same one, so we can just do a free for all kind of discussion at this point.
Yeah. Actually, can I? Oh, you're getting ready.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask if I could just mention some like books that didn't make it in my honorable mentions.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Sorry to derail.
No,
I feel
we're
bad if I don't mention them.
no, we're making excellent time as it is now too. So
Yeah, I agree. So, this would probably be number 11. I wasn't sure exactly if it was gonna make it in, but, we buddy read this one.
yes, Clara and the Sun by
Yeah.
Kazuo Ishiguro.
Yes.
Yeah,
So I really like that one. Another like sci-fi speculative fiction.
yeah,
My second book by him. And I really
yeah.
enjoyed that. It really was one of those books that kind of sticks with you, where you
Mm-hmm.
keep thinking about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and then another one, another reread I did this year was Station 11.
By Emily St. John Mandel.
Yeah.
Yes. I still
Doesn't.
need to I still need to read that one, but
Mhm.
I just got The Glass Hotel for Christmas,
Oh,
so
I
I'm
did.
I'm really excited. Ah!
So you haven't read Station 11?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay. So it's another one I really am glad I reread because there's a lot going on in this, a lot of different storylines, different characters.
And it seems to
Um,
be pretty, from what I remember, because I did read a sample of it before I put it on my Christmas list and whatever. Because I
mhm.
put both of the books that she had out
Okay.
on my list for this year.
Mhm.
And it seems to be quite timely given, I think there's like some sort of pandemic happening in that story as well.
Yeah, so that actually might be kind of a warning. Like this came out way before COVID or anything, but there is a pandemic that wipes out like 80% of the human population in this book.
Hmm.
So proceed with caution if you think you can handle it or, avoid until a safer time.
Yeah.
But I did read this a few years ago and I didn't really get it. Like, I think because I was listening to the audiobook while I was at work and I put it down for a little while. But this time I went into it because I wanted to figure out like why this was so popular and it has such high accolades. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I did was I started making like character lists and taking notes and like drawing little arrows to like show who was like related to each other and stuff so I could keep track of
Love
it.
that. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I had a way better reading experience this time. But yeah, I really enjoyed that one. And then I also enjoyed this one. I gave it 5 stars, but I usually don't rate nonfiction that are like memoirs.
Right.
But
Run, hide, repeat.
right, by
Okay.
Pauline Dakin. And this one I found just really moving. It's about this woman's starting in her early childhood up until like recent adulthood, about how her mother was convinced by their pastor or some kind of clergyman that there was some kind of secret society chasing him. And then when the mother got involved with him, she had to bring her kids into hiding as
Oh
well.
my goodness. Wow.
And just about like so the title Run, Hide, Repeat about and they're Canadian as well. So it was like very interesting, like reading about all these different locations as they like kept running and moving to different areas of Canada. I was like, oh, I've been there,
Yeah.
so um yeah, so it was heartbreaking. I cried at the ending and I've only ever cried at 3 books in my entire life.
Wow.
Um
That is a big statement.
yeah, it surprisingly doesn't have very good reviews. It's not very well liked. And I will say, like, you read this book for the story, like the intrigue in the story. It's not like the most beautiful, like purple prose ever, but yeah, it was just such an unusual life to lead that had so much impact on the kids, and
Yeah.
uh, yeah, just absolutely heartbreaking. So yeah, that's it for my honorable mentions.
All right. So shall we
Right.
get to number one? Drum roll,
Yes.
please.
I'm
Dun,
so
dun, 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 dun,
excited.
dun. These Violent Delights by Micah Never Ever. I was
Yes.
saying to Emily before the stream, this has officially overtaken The Book Thief as my favorite
Yes.
book of all time.
Hmm.
And I know you had a very similar experience. You posted
Hmm.
about it on Instagram, and you had some pretty colorful commentary for me early this morning.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So Matthew very kindly gifted me this book for my birthday this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I read about half of it. And I was telling Matthew in one of our writing sprints, but I had put it down because I just didn't have time for such a long time to sit down and like marathon the last half of it, which is what I really wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to figure out which side this looks better on.
um,
Okay.
so actually, just to be fully transparent with you guys, I just finished this book last night.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, so this is definitely one of my new favorite books. I would say the merit within the characters, the story, the psychological aspect of this book is
Mm-hmm.
so huge, that it's one of the greatest books I've ever read. I have to keep thinking about it to consider if it's my new favorite book. That is a big ask.
Yeah.
As we know, my other favorite books are like The Song of Achilles
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
Oryx and Crake and stuff. So like very, very big books.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so this is not the type of book I was telling Matthew that you can read kind of like 15 minutes every night before you go to bed.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, so like I was floored by the prologue. my brain kept saying epilogue, but I meant prologue.
Yeah.
Where the characters literally are just sitting in a vehicle and opening a thermos of soup, I think it
Yeah.
was.
Some kind of
And
soup, yeah.
I was enthralled, like hooked.
Yes.
It is
Yes.
so tense and messed
Yes.
up. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? Like, you don't even
Like,
know who these people are yet.
what the hell did Matthew just have me read?
Yeah, and it's like, it's like this mundane circumstance that the characters are desperately trying to like maintain control of because something else is happening underneath the surface. And it was like, what is this book? It was crazy. So
I know.
um I've been telling all my friends about this. I have like 3 friends, so it's not that
Same.
big a deal.
I have bought this for 3 different people now, including
Mhm.
you,
Mhm.
and Unholy Triforce in the chat here,
Yeah, I'm thinking
saying,
of buying it for my couple other friends as well.
yeah, TVD, I knew it would be at the top of the list, lol. I'm still about halfway through it. Matthew also gifted it to me for my birthday, and it's so very emotional for me reading it.
Yeah. I definitely have very like emotional response to a lot of parts of the book.
I really love, but I feel such a sense of anxiety at what I know is going to come very quickly that it's been hard. Like their emotional states, I've had to reread a lot of it already.
Mhm.
Very true. This is not a very happy book.
Right.
And
It's really
it's it's
dark.
it's it's not happy in any sense of the word at all.
So, I kind of sent you like updates over DMs as I was reading it.
Yeah.
Um but maybe Matthew, I've talked some. You go ahead and like tell the viewers basically what like the synopsis is.
All right. So this book takes place in 1970s Pittsburgh, and it revolves around two 17-year-old college students named Paul and Julian who meet during the first day of classes. I believe it's in their psychology class, if I'm remembering correctly, their ethics
Yeah.
class,
Yeah, yeah,
psychology
yeah.
or ethics or something.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they become friends and they see each other as kind of the other's intellectual equal, and like no one outside of the two of them understands each other, and it starts as a friendship. Like you've got Julian lending him the philosophy books and all of that, so it starts as a friendship, but it just devolves into this really dark intellectual, uh really like, I'm blanking on most of the words. I've reviewed this book 7 times. You think I wouldn't be blanking on some of the words that I've used, but it's about, it the relationship becomes one of like lust and
Mhm.
intimacy, jealousy, obsession, toxic codependence, and as you said, and as we see for the first time in the prologue, uh, violence. Absolutely unspeakably horrific violence.
Mhm. The way I thought of their relationship between Paul and Julian was a spar.
Yes.
It's
Or
almost like a
or
practice fight.
I was just thinking about this, just came to my head to describe it, because chess is such a big part of the novel.
Mhm.
There's a motif about chess in there that's really important, and I was just thinking it was like that game that Julian is obsessed with, that game of chess. That
Mhm.
Julian's obsessed with that one particular game that was played by the grandmasters, right?
Right.
So it's like they're each making moves and waiting to see what the other will do, and kind of
Mhm.
like egging each other on as they move the pieces, and
Mhm.
it's really enthralling and utterly sadistic, to be honest.
Yeah. Um, the main character, Paul, is rather a sadist, but he hates himself so much.
Yeah.
And so what I described it as to you when I got into like the meat of the book was I felt like I was reading about like a baby serial killer
Right. Yeah, I remember you.
where it was kind of like the coming of age story. And then as I thought
Mhm.
about it more, um the way I described it to like my two friends I was telling about this was it's almost like the college tale of like Hannibal.
Ooh, okay.
But there's no cannibalism in it.
No,
But
we should clarify that really quickly. No, nothing like that in there.
yeah.
There is sadism and violence, but not much else.
Mhm. Yeah, like the characters kind of reminded me of Hannibal and Will from the Netflix series.
Right.
Um
Which I
and
loved the Silence of the Lambs, by the way, so that was a perfect comparison.
yeah, it like okay, so I saw some people on Goodreads saying they hated this cover.
I love it. Oh my god, it's stunning.
Now that I finished the book, I don't like it either.
Really?
I really don't believe this describes the book enough.
Fascinating. Okay, why?
So, I kind of like that it's like a white background because like it's dark academia.
Right,
Um, you would think that would be like a black, like automatically it's gonna be a black cover. And I like
right.
this like blood swipe, but
Yeah.
the font is just not big enough. If they were gonna go for like the whole like cover being taken up by the text, it's not like bold and big enough. And then this picture doesn't describe. I just really don't like this photo that they used in it. This like blurred out photo.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like that you can't really see the identity of the boy in it, but it just doesn't do it for me. It's not exactly describing the book to me.
Yeah. That's fair. And for me, the one thing I will say that I didn't like about this cover, I couldn't tell if this was Paul or Julian on the cover. I assume it's
Yeah,
meant to be one of them,
yeah.
but I
I
couldn't
always
tell.
assumed it's meant to be Paul, but the way
Right,
he's described is as a very fair redhead.
right,
But
and
this is a
clearly
brunette.
a brunette. So I'm
Hmm.
maybe that's Julian because Julian had like the.
He has darker hair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So I don't know. I feel like the cover is a little bit lazy.
I still really like it. Like that blood swipe is that blood swipe in particular, the way that that's across the eyes and that just
Hmm.
really drew me in. And like the like you said, the white on the red, like with the yeah, it just works.
Hmm.
Like on a color spectrum level for me.
Okay. So what I would like as an artist, I'm just like, hey, what would I make this cover? Is more of like zoomed in on like the boy's jaw, mouth area, and shoulders, and have like a bloody hand like going into his mouth.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is yes.
Something
Okay.
to think about. But
Mm-hmm.
um there's so much depth to this book and so much going on, and like I don't know if you do this, Matthew, but when I like a book or when I'm analyzing it, I actually will like go in and mark up the book. And
I don't annotate. I'm so scared to do that.
okay, so I will do that. And I did dog ear like my favorite part of the book, but I thought like when I first started reading, I was so impressed by the prose on a line level that I was like, oh, I'm gonna start underlining my favorite lines in this.
Mm-hmm.
And I very quickly realized
Yeah.
that that was gonna be like every other line.
Yeah, the prose is stunning.
Yeah.
It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, so I kind of want to like maybe when this comes out in paperback, I might buy a copy so that I can.
It's already out in paperback.
Oh, it is? Okay, I didn't even check, but yeah, I think I'm gonna buy a copy and so I can like mark up that one and then keep this one.
Nice and pristine. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it does have a dog ear in it, but otherwise it's pristine.
Yeah.
um,
Oh, so don't keep me. Is it a spoiler? Is your favorite part of the book a spoiler?
well, it is. It's within like the first third of the book.
Okay.
So
Is anything is there anything that would spoil anyone in that passage?
it's the first sex scene.
Yeah, I remember this because you sent me a photo
Mhm.
of the page of the book where the sex
Mhm.
scene ends.
Yeah.
And you were like, this love story is so intense. Oh my god. And I'm like, I was like, at the time, I was like, girl, you have no idea. And you really don't. And then it becomes clear that Paul is a sadist. And
Mhm.
yeah,
I really had never read anything portrayed like that before.
yeah, me neither.
Um, Unholy Triforce has left us a comment.
Yes, I'll pull it up on the screen here. Yeah, and one particular move engrosses Julian so completely that even when other matters should be of greater importance, he's lost in thought, contemplating how that move came about. Right,
Mhm.
because he's obsessed with figuring out how this one grandmaster in the chess game lost,
Yeah.
but he can't find the flaw, and it's like obsesses him to no end.
Mhm.
So,
Was
yeah.
there anything in the book that you didn't like or you thought was kind of like a weakness?
Oh, God. I'm gonna just on the surface say on the surface no, because I've read the book 7 times in 6 months.
Mhm.
That's unprecedented.
Mhm.
Like if you can make that happen, where I I've told you this, these characters have literally seared themselves into my brain. I
Mhm.
think about them all the time. I think about this story all the time, and it just has not left me. This is the best blind buy I have ever made of a book.
Oh, it was a blind buy.
Ever.
That's
Yeah,
crazy. That's crazy. It's like now our favorite book ever.
I know. I was, but like you said, from that prologue, it just hooks you,
Mhm.
and you have to know more. And then it's just, I compare it to a train wreck,
Mhm.
because that necessarily it's not going to end
Mhm.
happily or well
Mhm.
for either of the parties involved,
Yeah.
but you can't look away from it.
Yeah, I think that's like what Unholy Triforce was saying a couple of comments ago, and like what I was telling you also, where I was like, I stalled like after the middle of it because I'm savoring it because it's so good, but also I'm so scared the ending is just gonna break me into pieces.
Yeah,
So
because we were DMing this morning as you were finishing it, and you were on page 411,
yeah.
and you said to me, "I've got 100 pages left. Please tell me this ending doesn't break me." And I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah, well, I
I
was like, tell
I
me
had
this is not gonna like end up with me in a crying my eyes out in the fetal position on the
yeah, yeah,
floor.
which I didn't think it would, and it didn't. But
Mhm.
I can never be sure when I recommend this book to someone what's going to what kind of emotion it's going to evoke.
Mhm.
So I couldn't be certain that you wouldn't be in that position on the floor, but I'm like, no, you should be okay.
Yeah, so how do you feel about Paul as a character?
I think Paul is a rare character, in my opinion. I've read some characters that have been like Julian, the charming, like, uh, big man on campus kind of intellectual types,
Mhm.
but I have never read a character like Paul before or since.
Mhm.
He is rare and he is twisted, and it is brilliant and delightful and just, oh my, so I think Julian put it well. You are so delightfully creepy, Pablo, he says at one point.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about him to a T. There's like this dread and uh this foreboding in the pit of my stomach when I read the book, and it's just like,
Mhm.
I know exactly who you are. I know exactly what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Will I read it until you destroy me anyway? Yes.
Yeah. The way he's written, I felt like it's so hard to talk about without like giving away all the spoilers, but
I know.
um the way the way I see him is as like a psychopath, right? But like at the beginning
Right.
of the book, he's kind of in denial of how much of a psychopath he actually is.
Right.
And then he like the way he's written, he's like growing and growing is more like distant from his emotions and distant from other human beings, that by the end it's like the way his psychopathy was portrayed was like really, really well done.
Absolutely, I agree.
And it's so rare to read a book that's told from that point of view.
Right.
And really in a sympathetic way. I found like I imagine some readers would read it and be like, oh, he's disgusting, or would like just hate him from the get-go, but I found it like very nuanced, and he has a lot of depth to him.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And it's like, I remember you DM'd me about the letters that I've written between Paul and Julian.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I feel like I'm reading like the historical archived letters of a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
And Julian was just kind of like egging him on and fueling those dark impulses that he has and further enabling his psychopathy.
Yeah, and like this. Okay, I guess I don't want to say this any kind of spoiler because Unholy Triforce hasn't gotten to it yet.
Oh
But
goodness.
yeah, just by the ending of the book, the way Julian viewed Paul and how he was like holding up hope for
Right.
something was like breaking me apart.
Yeah. 100%.
Again, like such an amazing portrayal and like nuance with like characters with so many layers to them.
Yeah. And like, I knew if the characters were in this story, they would have to have some nuance and depth to them.
Mm-hmm.
But when we first meet Julian, he's kind of like this haughty, like, I'm better than you kind of intellectual
Mm-hmm.
in like the sharply dressed clothes and all of that. So I didn't, and he's like this trust fund baby who's been spoon fed
Mm-hmm.
his whole life, except emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I'm like, okay, like I like a character like this, but if this goes like if the character's not done right, then it's gonna fall flat. And thank God it did not fall flat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's rare where you have like a couple where in a book both characters are equally as compelling as the other.
Absolutely. hmm
And Micah managed to do it without jumping, like head hopping to Julian's point of view. So the whole thing is from Paul's point
Perspective,
of view.
right?
Yeah, but we still got so many layers of Julian that way. It was just so amazingly well done.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's another book where I'm like, God damn it, I will never be this good.
I know. Why do you think I've had it on my TBR for 7 months straight?
Yeah.
This story just will not leave me. These characters will not leave me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have probably been the number one TBD stan on social media over the last 7 months because I constantly
Yeah.
post about it. But, at this point, if I haven't convinced you to read this book, I'm clearly doing my job as a content creator very wrong.
I mean, I'm sure it's not for some people, like reading the reviews and Goodreads, but it's for us for sure.
Absolutely. I don't know what that says about us, mind you.
We are sick individuals.
No, to be just to disclaim that we are actually very nice, lovely
Yeah. I'm
Canadian
just
people.
joking.
Yeah, yeah. What?
But I love a misunderstood villain. That's exactly like what this is.
Me too. This reminded me when I first read the book. the dynamic between Paul and Julian reminded me so much of Victor and Eli from B.E. Schwab's book Vicious. I don't know if you've read that.
No, I haven't.
You have to. Literally, that should be the next thing you read.
Okay.
Because that is literally, like, there's a lot of parallels between the four of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just fascinating and, like, morally ambiguous. And, oh my god, I love that book so much, too. Like I said, B.E. Schwab's, like, my third favorite author of all time. So, Unholy Triforce has a couple comments here. Yeah, I read the prologue and I had to stop, think about it, read it again, and then, yeah, I am so stalled about halfway through and I'm going to be totally wrecked. I know it.
Yeah, that's a comment I was referring to. Go back and read the prologue again now that you are halfway through.
Right.
Because that's what I did, and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I'm just glad I'm not the only one who stalled out in the book. I've been trying to figure out why that was happening, and you explained it so well, Emily.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not because it like slows down or anything bad happens. It's like scary. It's scary to keep reading.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, even, like I said, I'm going to be reading it for the 8th time in 7 months, but even still, I get this, like, horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach, and it just makes me feel nauseous. But I love it at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, it's so tense.
Yeah, for sure. I love how this is basically just turned into an all-out non-spoiler TVD review.
That's what I wanted.
Yes.
So, by the way, guys, I was actually DMing with Micah Nemerever this morning on Instagram.
Right, yeah.
Because I tagged him in my story when I finished this last night. I was just like sitting on my bed, like dumbfounded, I think is the word I used.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god. So yeah, I tagged him on my story saying this. I've read about 1,000 books in my life, and this could be the best one. And he was like, replied like, oh my, thank you so much, like crying emojis and stuff. So I asked him if he's working on a second book, and he said he is, though it's going slowly. So we are super stoked to just know that there's another work coming up from Micah Nemerever, because this is his debut, like possibly the most amazing debut of all time. But
100%. I mean, the fact, like, I didn't know if this was a debut or not when I first bought the book. Like I said, it was completely blind. I read the synopsis, I saw the cover, so I kind of knew, like, that the characters were named what they were. I kind of knew something happened and that it was obviously gay, which I love for obvious reasons.
Yeah, we're like, yoink.
Yeah, and then, but it was like I said, it just seared itself into my brain, into my consciousness. I think about this all the time. I think about these characters and this story, and it just has not left me alone. And then I find out it's a debut, and my eyes just about popped out of their sockets. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, this reads like the book of an author who has been publishing for 10 years. 15, 20 years.
And before we went live, you mentioned Donna's heart, and that was like exactly what I was thinking of too, like how Donna had this like explosive debut with publishers fighting over her debut book, and she's taken 10 years between each book. So hopefully Micah doesn't take quite 10 years, but either way, we can keep rereading this book until the next one comes out.
Absolutely. I mean, like, I don't think this book's going to be knocked off my TBR at any point soon. I'm not tired of it. And every time I reread it every month, it's like I see something in the book that I hadn't seen on any of the previous reads. And it's that sense of always finding something new that I think is part of what makes it such a compelling reread. And yeah, it just until it bores me, it's gonna be right at the top of my TBR, and I'm gonna start every month off with this thing. I am literally starting 2022 uh, at 12 a.m. tomorrow morning. At 12 a.m. tomorrow, I will literally crack this open for the 8th time.
Awesome.
That is what I plan to do, right as the clock strikes 12. Ball drop, hug the sister, she goes to bed, sit down in my on my futon downstairs and lay out and read this and
Mm-hmm.
just get lost in it all over again.
Are you afraid of the day that you do like don't want to read it anymore or get bored of
Yes,
it?
yes. I will never get rid of this book. Let's be perfectly clear about that.
Yeah.
This book will be a favorite for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same way that The Book Thief was my favorite novel for 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still one of my favorite books. It's just that this happens to top it.
Yeah.
So I will never get rid of this book, but I'm gonna be so lost when I move on from it. Like whenever I do, if it's like a month from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as it keeps me coming back and keeps uh, sticking in my mind and keeps making me think and feel and all of that, then yeah, I'll continue to read it for as long as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, not even ashamed of this. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I have 3 different versions of These Violent Delights.
Yeah.
Yeah. Technically 2, but I went ahead and bought the physical audiobook even though I have it on Audible already.
Yeah, I get
It was like $20, so I'm like, hell yeah.
yeah, let's give Micah more sales.
Yes. Like if I could ever pick his brain about this book, that would be amazing.
Mm-hmm. I really liked his explanation at the back of the book too. He kind of wrote a page about his inspiration and like how he
Right.
started down with the concept of this.
For sure. Yeah. That definitely put things into perspective, and it was kind of like the final piece of the puzzle where it was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
now with the benefit of retrospect or hindsight or whatever the word would be that most fits there, I
Mm-hmm.
can see, like, I know what happened in the book, but now I know why the author did certain things that he did in the book,
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like that final puzzle piece, like, wow, this story's been amazing, and now I know exactly why.
Mm-hmm. And I was surprised it wasn't like Silence of the Lambs wasn't like mentioned in there because it did really like remind me of that,
It,
especially the butterfly thing. Yeah.
yeah, oh god. That's one of my favorite movies of all time, but my god, it
It's a
is,
perfect movie. Shane watches that movie like 5 times a week.
yes. He must have been really happy when it showed up in my Criterion Collection video.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I got like 4 of those for Christmas. I was really happy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, 2 of them are still on their way here, but like I said, 95% of my Christmas haul was already in yesterday, so I'm like, screw it, I'm just gonna make the video. Yeah. I think that's pretty much as thorough as we can get without spoilers for this
Yeah.
book. So, Unholy Triforce, you will have to start a group on Instagram and let us know when you finish this so we can go really,
Yeah.
really into the.
Definitely let us know.
Yes. Like, I've like I said, I've literally bought it for 3 people, and I'm not
Mhm.
even sorry. I'm not obsessed with this book.
I've never seen The Bone Collector.
So, Silence of the Lambs is truly epic. It's definitely my favorite crime movie. The Bone Collector is a close second. Yeah, I've never seen it either.
Hmm.
I will have to look that up then.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's anywhere near Silence of the Lambs, my god. I really want to read the book for it too. Just to
Yeah.
see what the difference would be.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if it'll like read kind of like a sequel to These Violent Delights.
Who knows? Well, I'll have to find out. I'll let you know.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Mhm.
Did you have anything you wanted to talk about or
Well,
anything? Well,
I guess you kind of mentioned your New Year's plans already, but like, was there anything else you want to talk about that you're looking forward to reading next year? Like, are you aiming for 100 books for 2022 or?
yeah. And I've already got 24 of them picked out for the month of January.
Oh, is that what you were doing on your Instagram? This.
No,
Oh.
that's additional books that I'm going to read.
Oh, okay.
Like I've
Yeah.
already got my January stuff figured out, but I'm like, I saw that template going around Instagram.
Mhm.
Like a lot of my other bookish friends were doing it,
Mhm.
and I'm just like, you know what? It could be fascinating to uh,
Yeah.
get other people's like completely unfiltered recommendations. Some of them uh, recommended multiple books, and some of them were ones that I had already read. So I'd have people choose other
Yeah.
recommendations or whatever. So
I think was it on there that I saw The Martian?
right, yep.
Have you read that before?
No, I've seen the
Okay.
film. I have not read the book.
I couldn't get through it.
Oh,
Yeah. Do you
they
like math?
not particularly, not math. I
You're
was
not.
I was I was horrible at math in school. Oh my god.
Yeah. You're not gonna get through
Oh
it.
god.
I'm just gonna call it now.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is one of my friend Dessa's favorite books. So I knew she was probably gonna recommend that to me, and I'm gonna go in with as open a mind as possible, like I always do,
Yeah.
and hopefully I enjoy it. But we'll see.
Yeah. Keep me posted. I'm curious what you'll
Yeah,
think of it.
I'm also really excited for to read Ace of Spades, which came out this year, but I'll
Okay.
be reading it in 2022 in January,
Mhm.
right after I finish this for the 8th time. I'll be reading Ace of Spades, and I've had that on my wish list for ever since it was released. So like it's pitched as Get Out meets Gossip Girl with
Mm.
like uh, LGBTQ plus rep and everything about that.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Ding, 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 ding. Checking all the boxes. I'm also gonna try and read more nonfiction this year.
Mhm.
That's something that I'm gonna make a concerted effort to do,
Mhm.
and so I am going to uh, read Brandy Carlisle's memoir, Broken Horses, at some
Oh
point
yeah. Okay.
in January.
Yeah, I should read that too.
Yeah. Uh, I got an Indigo gift card from my mother and her husband for Christmas, so
Mhm.
they bought me Unwind by Neil Schusterman, which is my friend Lucy's favorite series, the same Lucy I mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
And she's been desperate for me to read that, so that's on the list too for this coming month. But I got the gift card and I'm like, okay, Real Life by Brandon Taylor. I've wanted to read for a while.
Mhm.
Again, it's kind of like LGBTQ dark academia kind of thing uh,
Cool.
with a guy in college, and then Broken Horses because I'm
Hmm.
like I love Brandy's music so much. It speaks to my soul.
Yeah.
So yeah, I obviously really wanted to read her memoir and get to know her as best as I could as a person as well.
Mhm.
So that'll be interesting.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Any reading plans for you? Anything you're really excited to get to?
I have pre-ordered a couple things that are coming out in 2022. So, Margaret Atwood put out a poetry collection, like last year, but I didn't buy it because it came out in hardcover.
Right.
And I wanted to wait till it came out in paperback, so that's finally coming.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I don't like really small little hardcovers.
Yeah.
So, and then also there is a graphic novel by Leigh Bardugo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously she's not the artist, but I pre-ordered that as well.
Love that. I'm gonna have to maybe get that for myself because I generally really like Leigh Bardugo.
Yeah, me too. So, I can't think of any other pre-orders, but yeah. So you were saying Vicious. I'm definitely adding that to my priority list.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guess I don't know. I want to reread these Violent Delights again with a copy that I can like annotate. And then I also want to get a copy of Station 11 because I want to dissect that as well.
Right.
Because I know it's another one of those books that stays with you for a long time. Like I keep thinking about it, but I want to know why because I don't know exactly why. So I want to just kind of like tear that apart and like put it back together.
Yeah.
But other than that, I just have a whole pile of books on my shelf that I haven't read. Yeah. It's like depressing.
I know I'm gonna be adding a couple of books from your portion of this video to my list.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. I'm gonna go and like make a whole list of the books that you were talking about.
Yeah, should we go through them one last time for everyone and then sign off, or?
Sure. Yes.
Sure. So let me get this all back in order because this is all over.
Yeah.
My bed at the moment. Ah, damn it.
I don't really remember.
Yeah.
My order specifically.
Right. And then this.
Should I go ahead while you're doing that?
Yep, just gotta put one more in here. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've got some advice here from Unholy Triforce, and they also say, and yes, definitely, we're gonna have to break this down, the three of us. Yeah, we will definitely do that. Read the book first. It's by Jeffrey Deaver. Okay.
The Bone Collector.
The Bone Collector. Okay.
Yeah.
So your number 10 was?
I don't know what it was now. I think, was it Bed?
Yes.
Bed by David Whitehouse.
And mine was If This Gets Out by Sophie Gonzalez and Cale Dietrich.
Right.
So number 9?
I believe was Tales from the Hinterland, maybe?
Right.
By Melissa Albert.
Yeah. Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid.
And then I had Heartstopper, Volume 2 in particular, but I recommend the whole comic. Me
too. Love that. A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas.
Awesome. And I had The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers.
Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby.
And I had Axiom's End by Lindsay Ellis.
Right. I read it. Bathhouse by P.J. Vernon.
Awesome. And I had The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab.
Yesterday is History by Kosoko Jackson.
And I had the independently published Death Wish series, which is 4 volumes currently.
Excellent. Roxy by Neil and Jared Schusterman.
And I had Iron Widow.
Right. By Ziran
J. Zhao.
J. Zhao. Yeah.
Yes.
The Charm Offensive by Allison Cochran.
Mm-hmm. The Atmospherians by Alex McElroy.
Yep. Invisible Boys by Holden Shepard.
Mm-hmm.
And dun dun dun, These Violent Delights by Micah Never Ever.
Mm-hmm.
So that was as much for you guys as it who are watching this, and as much as for the people who are going to watch it later, all the way through, and as much as it was for you guys as it was for us to remember exactly what books we wanted from each other's stacks.
Yes. I think we were, was it right after Christmas, we were sending each other what books we just bought as well, and now I feel compelled to buy more.
I know, it's a problem.
Yeah.
I need to be stopped.
I think we should really challenge ourselves for 2022 to like read some stuff that we already have on our shelves.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe we can talk about that later, like if we're going to challenge ourselves to read like 20 books that we already had previous to 2022. If you even have, you know, a big shelf.
Oh, I do.
Backup. Okay, yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been stuff that has been sitting on my shelves for months.
Oh, I read a book this year that I had for like 7 years.
Okay, you got me beat. Wow.
I won it off of Goodreads. It was like one of those Goodreads ARC giveaways.
Right.
And yeah, so I forced myself to read it finally and then got rid of it.
Do you remember what it was?
I'd have to look at my Goodreads. It was by a Canadian author, and it takes place in Newfoundland.
My grandparents are from there, actually.
Oh, one of mine is too. My paternal grandfather.
My maternal grandparents were from Newfoundland. My Nana, unfortunately, as you know, has already passed on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my grandfather who is still living is from Newfoundland originally.
Okay. It was The Son of a Certain Woman by Wayne Johnston.
Ooh. Interesting. Unholy Triforce says, yeah, I'm definitely interested in Invisible Boys and Iron Widow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Invisible Boys is incredible, and I look forward to reading Iron Widow because I've had that on my radar for a while, and I just haven't bought it yet, and I'm like, should I?
Yeah, same with Invisible Boys. Since the first time you talked about it, I was like, oh, I need to get that.
Yeah. Your best bet is probably going to be Book Depository, to be honest.
Okay.
Because it's originally published in Australia, and their shipping just from an Australian bookstore to Canada is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Book Depository has free shipping, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well.
Anyway, this was as much fun the second time around as it was the first.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to be on and crazily doing 2 live streams in 48 hours with me.
Well, my pleasure.
Yeah, mine as well. It was. We'll do it again, though. Hopefully, not this close together ever again.
Well, thankfully, it's kind of like during the holidays, so
right.
I haven't had too much, work-wise. I've been off, so that's been good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I look forward to reading lots of good books in 2022.
So do I, and hopefully we'll both finish novels and.
Yes. Oh, we should have talked about that a bit more. Maybe we can do some kind of like writing live or like a discussion next year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Unholy Triforce here. I'm so happy you both still have your voices.
Yeah. I
I
haven't
know.
lost mine somehow. But
Yeah. But yeah, and we'll continue our weekly writing sprints, I hope. Those have been fantastic.
yeah, so yeah, we'll pick up again next week, I think.
Yeah, pick that up again next week, and then we will, barring COVID delays, see each other in person for the first time in 3 years?
Yeah,
In May,
in
to
May.
see Rina Sawayama in concert.
I can't wait. Yeah.
I know, it looks so good. I'm
Yeah.
trying to avoid the footage, but at the same time I want to watch the footage and it's so hard.
Okay, I won't send you it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
2 live streams in 48 hours. I don't know how you managed, LOL. I don't either, my friend. I don't either.
It's better than 24 hours, I guess.
Oh, yeah. And at least this one's not 4 hours,
Yeah.
like one of ours was.
That one was very intense, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in, whether you're here with us live. There's 2 people watching right now. Everyone who's going to watch it in full later when it's archived. Just thank you all so much, and I will see you. I think I'm going to take a break from videos for most of the month, but I will see you at some point toward the end of the month for a couple of videos.
Sounds good.
Alrighty. And as always, links to my social media and to Emily's social media are in the description section down below. So be sure to connect with us, talk with us. We're human, we're friendly, we talk back.
Yeah, and Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year, guys. We got Unholy Triforce. Thank you so much for doing this. Both so much for doing this. This was a lot of fun. We're glad
Thank
you
you for being
enjoyed it.
here.
Thank you
Yeah.
for being here. Yeah. All right, guys.
All right. Have a good night.
All right. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.